He is not moving. He's not around no more.
Perhaps a fly killer.
Yes, guys, and welcome back to the BrokeCast. We're on episode
7, I think.
7,
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, lost track of time. But we're back, and interesting week. Today, we're going to speak about a lot of Ripple, a lot of XRP. Again, shock. Main reason for that is this man right here went to Ripple Swell last week, which was incredible. So if you've been keeping up with his social media, you would have seen all the posts, all the news, all the alpha, all the content was coming your way on Twitter. If you don't follow him, give him a follow. But yeah, we're going to talk about Ripple Swell, what you heard, the people you were speaking to, the kind of people that were there. I think we'll start off by talking about, in general, what was the event like? And more importantly, how does it compare to other events? Because we've obviously been to a lot of events now since we've been here in Dubai. For example, the Cardano Summit, which we were literally at a week prior to that. And it'll be interesting to see how Ripple Swell compares to that, because I already know the answer to this, but I'm just building this up for you guys.
Well, first off, I want to just say, I made a little video about this the other day. I posted on all my socials, but I just want to get across that I'm not digging on anyone. It's not a dig, it's just an observation. We've been to a lot of different crypto events, as you said. Very different in terms of what they offered, the amount of people that went, all these sorts of things, and the type of people that went to the different events as well. Cardano was the best by far out of all the events that we've been to prior to that. But Ripple Swell was in another league. And I don't mean that in terms of just because I hold XRP, I'm going to say that. I mean it as more they just are playing, it's almost like they're playing a different game. Cardano are very public facing, even the event felt public facing. A lot of the community there, everyone was happy to be there. Very well put on, professional, but everyone was into mingling and stuff. Whereas with the Ripple Swell, it was more corporate facing. It was super professional, everyone was there, apart from me basically, in suit and tie, all CEOs, all either CEOs or from banks or high up in the payment world or high up in the financial world. Everyone I spoke to had a really deep understanding of the financial markets and always in the financial markets in some way. And that's the main difference between a crypto event that we've been to so far, and we're going to get into some details, but the crypto event that I've been to so far compared to Swell, that's the biggest difference that I can say to anyone just watching this. It's people even comment on my videos saying ridiculous things oh, it's not full, and it's no, it's not full because I only invited 400 people. You had to pay to go, I think it was $300, but I was lucky enough to get invited anyway. But it wasn't full because they're selecting on who comes. Imagine if they'd made that a public event, it'd be absolutely twitch tight.
Everyone was trying to go there.
But
you get all the nose pickers there.
To be fair, I applied to go and got rejected. And then someone from indirectly from the Ripple team reached out and spoke to me.
Yeah.
So I was just lucky to get a ticket more than anything.
Yeah. So what does that say about obviously let's relate it to XRP then, Ripple and XRP. You're saying there's loads of corporate people there, a lot of people with high level of financial knowledge / intellect. Does that show you? Did it give you a bit of a boost in terms of your belief that XRP is the right thing to be investing in when you're being around those type of people, around all these corporative figures? I guess that's kind of what gives XRP a bit of a negative name sometimes. People are oh, it's a bit too corporate, it's the banker's coin, etc., etc. But did that kind of reaffirm to you that you're investing in the right asset when it comes to XRP specifically?
Well, realistically, that's where all the money is. In all those corporations where all the money is, there was no specific true alpha that I can give you that's going to confirm or deny anything that we like and see on Twitter. And that's not me being trying to dodge the question or anything. It's just they didn't go there and talk about and pump up XRP. They weren't oh, go out and buy XRP or anything like this. The only real things that I can say towards XRP specifically in that question, did it confirm my investment, is they were quite clear they were doubling down on crypto. They were quite clear the XRP ledger is very integrated and like the base of what they're trying to build at Ripple. And then they talked about the SEC and regulation a lot. So the three things that revolve around the cryptocurrency at XRP at an event that's full of people from banks. So does it make me feel like I'm more secure with my investment? Yes, because of the caliber of people that were in there, but they didn't specifically say, oh, XRP this, XRP that. However, it was like mentioned as a matter of fact thing rather than being like, oh, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. They didn't really talk about any developments on the XRP ledger or anything like that. They just talked about more like what's going on in the financial world. It was more of like a financial conference. They just talked about finances and how blockchain in general can be integrated. But the quality of their guests and people that they were talking to and the way that the XRPL was being integrated already gave me like the insights of what they're trying to do. And then obviously they released their new payment, like Ripple Payments, which is more for like SMEs and like unlicensed corporations, but directly uses XRP like to settle. So there was that aspect of it. So it's a hard question to answer because like if you know when we go to a crypto event, everyone's like gassing it, like talking about the price of this, price of that, this is what's going to happen, like this is the newest development, this is amazing, this is amazing, this is amazing. It wasn't really like that. It was more like just a room full of like people who are in the finance world just but trying to integrate Web3.
Yeah, to me it sounds like their plan/business plan, especially when it comes to Ripple Swell, was to highlight, like you said, what's going on in the financial space, maybe highlight the issues and the potential fixes to this. And obviously Ripple themselves are building products which solve these issues. I think that's their kind of business plan. Instead of shoving XRP down your throat, they're just highlighting what's wrong with the current financial system and how they can potentially, help steer that direction to a more of a positive path, whether it comes through the XRP or XRP specifically.
Yeah, and there was like a huge emphasis on networking as well. Like one of the main things they wanted you to do was just network with the people there.
Yeah.
And obviously, like the people there, as I said, like high influence people within the financial world, but everyone was there to speak to you. Like even though the people doing the talks on the stage, like they were just intermingling with everyone. So there'd be like a conference and then like a networking, a conference and a networking, like all the way through the 2 days. And it just felt like a room full of people who were trying to integrate crypto into the banking world.
Yeah.
But at scale, like not at like a community level, at a corporate level, an infrastructure level.
Yeah. So obviously when you were like networking with all these people, then you're obviously introducing yourself as a XRP content creator. Yeah.
I just said that I worked in Web3 and I was a content creator in general, but I did focus.
What was their like reaction to that? Because these guys are all corporate, so if they come across like a content creator, it's a completely different kind of, thing for them.
A lot of people already knew who I was, which is weird. Like, came up to me, introduced themselves, like, "Oh, I watch your content," which is amazing. Like, very appreciative of that, and it was very surreal actually. But then others, they were more like because they're quite a lot of them were like TradFi backgrounds. They were really interested in what I had to say, like about Web3 and like these sorts of things, and also my macroeconomic views. That people were very interested in that as well. We talked about there were sort of conversations we had talking about like macroeconomics, how XRP might integrate, what people thought that the XRP ledger was going to do in the future, how things might or might not work, what traditional banks were like in regards to their banking systems and potential updates to the future. And so they were very receptive in that way. They were very receptive about like my views on everything, really. Everyone was.
All right, so let's talk about what the revelations that came out of the event. Obviously, they made most of the announcements public as well. I think the first one to talk about is Metaco. Obviously, Metaco are a company that Ripple bought a stake in, a certain amount of stake in.
No, they acquired it.
They acquired the entire thing. And they have basically partnered with HSBC to tokenize security so they can provide their institutional clientele, custody for crypto to their institutional clients, basically. And Ripple obviously have acquired Metaco as well. So, and you actually spoke to the CEO, didn't you, of Metaco, which is weird because I was literally writing an article about RWAs, like real world tokenizations, real world assets being tokenized, which we posted in our Discord, by the way. So another plug to the Discord. And I quoted something that the CEO said about how he thinks everything is, like security-wise, is going to be tokenized and put on the blockchain. and I quoted him within the article. What was it like to speak to him? What did he say about?
He basically just explained that Metaco was a custodian and they were the best custodian in the space. They'd spent however long creating the most secure and the best way to be a custodian in the space and building relationships. They were based out of Switzerland initially. Ripple obviously acquired them for 250 mil, which is again like a hell of a lot of money. Like think about the amount of money they're spending on acquisitions during a bear market and while they're being sued by the SEC. Yeah. It's a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, at the event, they announced their partnership with HSBC, and then we talked about that. Obviously, I posted it over on Twitter. But the thing that, like, it was a big deal, but no one made a big deal out of it. It was like, well, this is what I mean about the event. It's not like everyone didn't get up and clap and go like, oh yeah, this is amazing or anything like that. Like, this is what we're doing. We got acquired by Ripple for 250 mil. We're the best custodian in the space, and we just have a partnership with HSBC. Bang, bang, bang.
Is it because they knew? Is it because again it comes down to like what I'm thinking, but is it because the people at that conference knows also what caliber of Ripple are in, and they expect these kind of announcements to come out, and they knew it was coming basically? Yeah,
maybe. I think people there, like, it's their day-to-day life. It's people who live in finance and like work in the financial world. It's day-to-day life for them. Like for me and you and other people around us in the crypto space, it's a big deal because we've got a big investment in XRP and we want to see what they're doing. But for the people who are there, it's just work. They just go and they talk about banking. They do banking. And like, I was speaking with one of the Metaco salespeople as well, and he was just saying how like slow moving the banks are, and it's like banging your head against the wall, like going in and speaking to banks all the time. And he said, but you can start to see it now, that some of the banks are leaning more towards it, and the other ones who aren't are just going to get left behind. Yeah. But he personally, he said something to me that actually changed, like made me think about stuff. He was like, oh, I'm going to meetings with banks like every day. And he said that nothing really will happen until a big bank like starts running with crypto or on the XRP ledger. And I said, oh, because I thought the smaller banks are more forward looking, so then the big banks will try and like compete with the smaller banks. He basically said the big banks don't care about what the smaller banks are doing because they're not going to do anything without like the approval of like a big bank. So he said like if you get like a Bank of America, like someone like that does something to do with crypto, then that's when all the other big banks will like jump in. But they're all like looking at it, but they're slow to like implement anything because why do they need to? Because they're already making like loads of money and they already control the financial system. Then on that same breath, then you've got HSBC partnering with the company that he worked for, Metaco, and obviously being a custodian for their crypto services, whatever that might be.
Yeah. Well, do you think HSBC are potentially like paving that way now for other banks to join in force? Because it's not just obviously this Metaco partnership, which HSBC have been quite like vocal with in terms of crypto. Obviously, in the past, they've been really skeptical about crypto and blockchain technology. That's no like new news, but as time's gone on, especially over the past year, HSBC have become a lot more crypto friendly. Let's just say that. Do you think, obviously they're one of the biggest banks in the world, do you think other people will start following now that they start to see it? Maybe this is literally what he was trying to suggest.
Maybe. HSBC, I think, had a partnership with Ripple like last year or the year before. So obviously that can't be going badly, otherwise they wouldn't have then partnered with Metaco, who were acquired by Ripple.
Yeah, true.
Like, it does feel a bit like smoke and mirrors, like no one is really able to say anything or will say anything. But at the same time, like that might just mean that there aren't, like nothing's in stone yet. Like it's not like, I'm not sitting here being a riddler about it, being completely transparent, and I always am. I'm transparent with my thoughts. My main takeaway from the question that you've just asked is like, are other banks going to be involved? And it's like, as soon as one bank is involved, if this is an involvement by HSBC, it's not going to be all at once anyway. The weird thing that happened is the next day after the announcement, or a few days later, they talked about tokenizing gold, HSBC did. And I presume with that partnership, at least for a trial, they will store that with Metaco, or Metaco will be the custody of the gold, which means that essentially Ripple are the custody because they own Metaco. Yeah. So that isn't like any sort of riddle. That's just fact. Yeah. And that's the difference between like this and like other announcements that you see on Twitter or announcements that you see about a crypto company or whatever. It's like, oh, this person's going to do this with that bank because this link said to this link said to this link said to this link. Whereas at like Swell, for example, they're just like, we acquired Metaco for 250 mil. Metaco now have a HSBC partnership. HSBC then come out to the tokenizing gold. So presume that they're tokenizing it with Metaco, which means that it's with Ripple, because Ripple own Metaco.
Doesn't make sense.
So it's like the foundation is potentially being laid for something massive, because like the caliber of the event was just nothing like I can really explain, because it's not like anything I've really experienced before.
What other kind of foundations would you say were laid? Obviously nothing major was announced, but like little things must have been said and like announced what they were talking about. Because I know they spoke a lot about obviously like tokenization, all that kind of stuff out there. Could you see other pieces of the puzzle that were kind of coming together with your thought process?
Well, a lot was announced, but it just doesn't seem like a big deal, because the price of XRP didn't go up. For us as crypto holders, like if some of the things that are announced on other chains, they would, like the price would probably spike of the crypto asset. I know that Ripple isn't XRP, but obviously they're heavily associated with it, and they've just talked about doubling down on the XRP ledger. One thing that really stood out to me was the fact, like the amount of like regulators they brought on stage. They talked to multiple regulators, from like VARA to the IFC, to actually some ex-regulators in the US came out and spoke, and they all just talked through regulation in general, and it seemed like a really key point as well. Another one was, as we said, their acquisitions and partnerships. So we talked about Metaco already, and how big of a company that is. $250 million company is no joke. Like, that's a lot of money. But then they also talked about other partnerships, and they gave some awards out, and they had like for example, someone representing on Afrique on stage, which is like an African payment system that is now partnered with Ripple and settles some payments on the XRP ledger. They had like, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but something like 120 million wallets using like 3 mobile phones using their payments network. That's a shitload of people. 120 million people.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Like, one thing that the Metaco sales guy did say to me, he was like, the most likely people to start settling are people like Western Union and people like that before you see main banks do it. But yeah, that's fun. But then also, we had the head of the government from Palau, who was on stage talking about the Palau stablecoin. And I can't remember who he was talking to, but obviously a Ripple representative. They were just talking about how that's built on the XRP ledger, and that's phase 1 of testing's finished, and that it was pretty successful, and phase 2 is about to start. It wasn't a massive subsection of people, but it shows that like these real world things are happening. Yeah.
Well, I'm intrigued, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are intrigued. What did they, because obviously you said they spoke a lot about regulation and the SEC. What did they say about that?
In regards to the SEC, they just talked about the fact that XRP wasn't a security. In regards to regulation in general, they just spoke more about how to be compliant, why people should be compliant. They had a lot of CEOs, as I said, of different companies on stage with them, all talking about different areas of crypto. For example, the Polygon CEO was there, and like this shows how big Ripple are as a company. Like the Polygon CEO was like honoured to be on stage at a Ripple Swell event, and it's like potential, not competitors, but it shows that there isn't bad blood there in any sort of way.
Yeah.
And they were all talking about why Dubai specifically is a jurisdiction, is a good place to live for crypto.
Why is that? Why is everyone so excited? Like obviously, I heard a clip about Brad specifically referencing to Dubai and what VARA are doing over here. What did Brad specifically say about them in that clip that you put on?
I don't know what Brad specifically said, but the general consensus was that Dubai's forward-looking, the regulators are forward-looking, that you can go in and talk to the regulators about potential issues, and they're actually here to innovate and help people grow rather than to stifle. Like that was the main thing. It was like, here you can go in and have a sit-down talk with the regulator, and they're not going to try and sue you for it. They're going to try and be like, oh, how can we implement this, and what do we need to do realistically?
Class.
And so that was the main thing that came out of it. It was like, it's just an open door policy compared to, like, for example, they even had the head of VARA, and also, as I said, the head of the IFC, which is like the Dubai International Finance Centre, potentially, you know, that place where we went the other day. Whatever it stands for, I can't remember now, but he was also there, the CEO of that, and it's like, but the other thing that surprised me is the CEO of that's an American guy.
Really?
Yeah, so he's an American. He was working at a company. They went in there to speak to them about specific things.
Yeah.
He left that company and then they poached him as their CEO. So they're also trying to be forward-looking towards the Western world. That was the point that I was trying to make. So loads of regulators, like there was 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 regulators or ex-regulators or whatever on stage at different points.
Sorry, that just baffles me because it just highlights, not that we even need to highlight this on the podcast, but it just highlights the fact how proactive Ripple are when it comes to regulation and how they're really not trying to step on anyone's toes or do the wrong thing in any kind of situation. And again, it just kind of, not again like it doesn't need saying, but it just shows how bad the situation is at the SEC right now and how the right word is desperate. Like they're just almost doing it for like a bit of a cash grab at this point. It's not to actually, they don't actually have an issue with anything. It's just they're just trying to get it as a cash grab and instead of trying to promote the technology.
Yeah, I just found it like it was super professional. That's what I'm trying to say. And their whole swell revolved around being professional, around compliance, like AML, KYC, like all these sorts of things, and not around the speculative price action of a digital asset or an asset in general. It wasn't even really about Ripple. It was just about crypto, Web3, and finance.
That's good.
And like I found that was super, super positive. Super positive. Like for someone, it just made me feel like they weren't going to pump my bags. Like I wasn't there for like a bag pump, but they were creating an infrastructure for a potential payment system that could facilitate huge players in the future.
Yeah, it seems like I said, it just seems like they're very confident in what they're doing right now, and there's no need for them to be like, oh, this is the problem. You can leverage XRP. XRP does this for this, and the XRPL can help solve this issue. They're that confident in what they build, and they know that everyone in that room knows exactly what infrastructure Ripple have in place. So when they're referencing all these issues, when they're talking about the macroeconomic situation, they know that everyone sitting in that room knows that Ripple themselves have, the infrastructure to solve and facilitate those issues, don't they?
There's a reason why the caliber of people in the room are those people. Like, there's a reason why the people in the room are those people, and they're there, even the people on stage talking to them.
Yeah.
They all have good relationships with each other. So, like I've said before, off camera to you, but also on camera, it's like the financial system works almost methodically, and the biggest thing is about who you know, not necessarily what you know. And they obviously know really important people in the financial world and have good relationships with them, and also have good relations with people in the Web3 world, no matter what you see on Twitter, and no matter the tribalism of people's different cryptos or whatever. Like that's just it's impossible to disprove what I've just said. Like like the people in that room have relationships with people like Ripple. Like on stage, everyone knew each other. Everyone at the event was talking to each other. Like it's all potentially a cliquey group. I don't know, but they're in the group.
All right, so that's enough about Ripple Swell. What's going on within the crypto space at the moment? I think the first thing we want to talk about, I know we spoke about XRP already so much, but let's quickly talk about ETFs. So BlackRock have filed for an ETH ETF.
Yeah.
We saw ETH rip on the back of that last week.
Indeed.
And then last night we saw some fake news about, I'm doing that because it's not confirmed fake news, even though 99% is, in my opinion, fake news.
Fake.
That there's an XRP ETF. And again, price rose 10%, came down 10%, and now markets are starting to bleed a little bit as we speak.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that's the main thing that's going around in the crypto space right now, this ETF narrative. It like falls off with Bitcoin, comes back up with ETH now. When are we going to see the approval that everyone's looking for? It's going to, like we said, I think, I don't know if it was the previous episode or the one before, but what I said was hype's going to die down about it, which for the Bitcoin one it has. And all of a sudden, it's just going to catch people off guard. Because it would have been silly for them to, well, not silly, but it wouldn't have been as likely to, obviously, for them to be approved and all that stuff to happen whilst the hype was in full flow. Now that everyone's forgetting about Bitcoin a little bit and, open interest is coming down a bit, people aren't really trading, people aren't really speculating on the market, it's a perfect time to bring an ETF in. And I think that's what's going to happen. A lot of people are going to get caught off guard with it.
I agree.
And all these people who are going to be shorting right now, because obviously things aren't looking as bullish as it was, let's say 2-3 weeks ago, both sentiment and price wise. All these people are shorting. We can see short positions are building on certain like liquidity softwares, and I think all these people are going to get caught off guard sooner rather than later as well.
Yeah, and I mean, like, price hasn't really moved too much realistically,
not really,
in the grand scheme, and all of a sudden it feels like the market is bearish again. Like, it feels like the market's bearish and no one really trusts to move up.
Yeah, it's because what's happened over the past week and a half, I'd say, isn't what people expected it to happen, basically. They're now, like a 2% move down in Bitcoin almost feels like a 10-15% move down because of the amount of bullish sentiment that's been around it over the past like month or so, since like the ETF rumours first sparked up. So I feel like because it was so high and now nothing's happened, everything's like flatlined and gone like fairly short. And like I said, you can see that in a fall in open interest and just volume in general when we're looking at Bitcoin. But with that being said though, alts are flying at the moment. Altcoins are absolutely going nuts. Like, we've made some good trades on certain alts, obviously made some bad trades as well, but on the whole, the ones that we've posted in our Discord, for example, they've all come in. There's been a lot of opportunity coming up in that period where Bitcoin kind of trades sideways. A lot of these alts have been seeing ridiculous days, like even WorldCoin, for example, yesterday was up at some point close to 30% in a day. It's crazy. And Rune, Solana, they're probably AVAX. They're just some of the, and again, Polygon as well, Chainlink. These are the main ones, like your big household altcoins, so to say, have been absolutely flying.
Well, what's Solana right now? Like $55 right now? Something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
It went up to like 60 and then came down to like 55, but on Twitter, we called that at like 17.5. Well, we talked about the inverse head and shoulders, came back tested the neckline, and we called a buy there at 17.5, and the take profit was $74, and we're already at 55. That was like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I still think that price target is actually on the card. Like, Solana is very popular right now. A lot of people, a lot of traders speaking about Solana. Obviously, we got rejected from that $63. Everyone's building up this like narrative about this $63 to $65 resistance for Solana and how we could see a potential like flip into a prolonged down period now for Solana. But I feel like, again, it's a dangerous game to be shorting Solana right now. If you're trading right now and you're actively shorting Solana, trying to catch the top of it, you're playing a very dangerous game, because it will just, if it does get through that $63 to $65 resistance, it's just going to go, I think, into triple figures at that point.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like it's a dangerous game going either way on something like that. Like, you don't, my personal opinion, if you're trying to catch a trade on something or looking to cycle some profits, it's just don't cycle them into things that have already made the huge gains. Yeah, they can obviously continue to go, but you want to cycle it into things that are quite stagnant. Like, for example, one that I've been looking at thinking it's going to move is Litecoin, another one is Doge. I still think they're both going to go, but it's just when are they going to go? And obviously you can get much bigger percentage returns on the lower cap altcoins as well, but money like cycles around, the liquidity flows around in crypto. You don't have to try and just catch the one that's already like ripped, like Solana has, what, 400% or whatever we are, 300% to wherever we are right now. You just cycle the profits into something that hasn't moved. And if we are going into a bullish period or a bull market completely, everything's going to rip. Everything's going to rip, and that's the important thing that people like don't think about a lot, because they think, oh, I'm in this coin, it's not moved, and that one's gone up 300%, so I'm in the wrong one. It's like, no, yours, that's just moved before yours. Like, from experience, when I've been in these markets before, everything goes up in value. It's just like timing the right asset at the right time. TA definitely helps with that. Also, so do fundamentals, but ultimately everything's going to go up in value if we're in that period in the market. And ultimately, Bitcoin leads the market in general, brings in liquidity, but ETH leads the alts. Like, ETH needs to, in my opinion, ETH needs to move up.
I think ETH will continue to move up. I think the ETH chart's something we spoke about 2 weeks ago now in our newsletter, our free weekly newsletter. I spoke about ETH and how it's embarking on its 5th impulsive wave in the Elliott wave theory. And I think my price target was something like, I can't even remember on the top of my head. I actually can't remember on the top of my head. But it's still quite a way up from here, in my opinion. And then obviously, yes, it was helped with, because I wrote that before the ETF news was announced, so it's given a bit of a kick up the backside to ETH in regards to that. And it's kind of given it what it needs to potentially execute that price target. I think it's looking good right now for ETH. But like we said, it ultimately, where I'm sitting right now, where I'm trading it depends on what Bitcoin is doing right now. Yeah. Like these 2% moves in Bitcoin, a 1% move in Bitcoin is translating to like nasty 5-6% corrections in altcoins because they've been moving so volatile recently. So when Bitcoin does make a little move towards the upside or downside, especially over the past like 2 weeks or so, these altcoins have really been really volatile. So if you are actively trading, be careful with your leverage that you're using, especially on alts.
Trading rule number one, though. Don't trade against the trend.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest trading. Yeah, no, that is the biggest trading lesson I've learned over the past month specifically, is to not try and catch a top of a move. So let's say Solana, for example. I learned this the hard way from trying to short Solana on its entire way up from like $30 all the way up to 60. A couple of times I got stung by trying to catch a top in Solana and trying to catch a short on Solana. And I actually, as soon as I flipped that and tried to catch their next impulsive waves up, that's where I started making good trades. So again, that kind of comes from advice that we got from Murphy in a trading book that me and Will are both reading right now. Is the main thing he stresses within that book is never bet against the trend.
Yeah, like, and by that what we mean is, obviously I just said don't try and along things that have already done huge percentages, which is what I think, like don't try and jump on things because they've got green candles. But if you think you've missed an entry, try and buy dips rather than like shorting tops. Yeah. Because it's much harder to short a top than it is to buy a dip.
Again, another thing that Murphy says in the book, the reason why tops are a lot harder to catch is because everything moves a lot quicker at the tops. So once you're trying to catch that top, they're just a lot harder to catch basically. Whereas the bottoms, you see more like stages of consolidation. You can see clear signs in upward ticks in volume, for example, open interest. There's certain things you can analyze. It moves a lot slower at the bottom. So catch those dips into projects which you're long-term bullish on. That's the main strategy I'd kind of say to people is pick a chart which you're long-term bullish on and use your smaller time frames to try and catch the perfect entry point to it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And like we were saying, I think buy dips. Buy dips if you have identified a trend. If you think the trend is bullish, then buy dips.
That's literally the main thing I try to tell new traders. I'm still new to it, obviously, but it's just one thing I'd give. Best bit of advice I'd give to anyone is to stop trying to catch these massive moves by catching reversals and just not join the trend, not join like the train or the trend hype, whatever it is. Don't try and catch green candles, but just don't bet against the trend. Don't bet against the trend. In other news though, not talking about alts. Actually, this is technically an altcoin because other coins that have been ripping this week are your FTT token, your Lunas. They've seen ridiculous days when they've gone up 60-70% in a day. And obviously partly one of the reasons for that is because Gary Gensler kind of hinted that they were going to potentially try and reboot FTX under better management, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, nice one, Gary.
Like he's trying to like protect investors and trying to be all ethical, trying to regulate the crypto space, and he's trying to bring an exchange that obviously Sam Bankman-Fried has just been trialed recently. He's trying to resurrect that from the dead. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's just so, he just counters everything that he kind of goes against in all these like interviews where he talks about crypto so negatively. He's trying to reboot the one thing that stung pretty much every investor in crypto. So like that just doesn't make sense.
I've got nothing to
it's
give
just
on
another
that.
It's another classic Gary Gensler story, I think.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I've got nothing to add because I just don't fucking like the guy.
There's not really much we can keep saying about him because we say the same thing every
madness,
week.
Really.
We've literally been saying the same thing every week for about a year now about Gary Gensler, probably plus. But they're probably the main like news stories that have kind of came out. Obviously ETFs, Gary Gensler. Not really much going on in news right now. I feel like everything's
we're like the eye of the storm is what I'd say.
Everything's a bit flat right now. Obviously, like I said, the hype's died down a bit in terms of price and interest. No real news developments coming out, nothing too significant anyway.
It's kind of the same in the wider markets in general, like traditional finance. Like there's a lot of issues there, but nothing's really, like the Fed have paused. Everyone's kind of waiting to see what's going to happen next in every market in general, even with like Middle Eastern conflicts. Like I feel like that's just disappeared out of the headlines as well.
Yeah.
Unless I'm not reading the news as much, like in the last 2 weeks, I've not really seen anything about it. Everything's kind of like everyone's like, I feel like what's going on right now.
That's what I mean. I feel like, obviously not just the conflict, but obviously when we're talking about potential like bank collapses as well, that's all still going on, but it's just no one's really shedding any light onto it anymore, because they've highlighted the issues. Now we're just in a period where we're trying to decipher how it's going to play out. I'm not too sure how it's going to play out, but one thing what I do want to say, obviously you tweeted about it today, I wrote about it in the newsletter as well, was the fact that the reverse repo market, and this is why I potentially think Bitcoin's got that one more push up. I know everything's super overcooked right now and sentiment's slightly dying down toward the downside, but like money's still leaving the reverse repo market at significant rates. And what you see is, I'll either pop up a chart or you can go ahead and read our newsletter, because I put the chart in there. But we saw like a little, obviously saw a massive flush out the reverse repo, and then there's that time lag between that capital potentially entering the markets. Bitcoin's gone on this big run. Then what we saw after that, whilst Bitcoin was kind of starting its move towards the upside, was that there was a slight slowdown in the capital leaving the reverse repo market. Is that the slowdown we're seeing now in crypto? That's the link I was kind of making. And then obviously after that, the reverse repo has continued to flush out. So that's why I think there's still more to come in this upward moves in crypto specifically, and obviously the markets in general. Yeah,
and the DXY looks like it's losing strength.
Yeah.
We talked about that as well. And the euro looks like it's gaining strength. So obviously that's the biggest contributor to the DXY basket. So they're all potential setups for crypto to go higher. We've got CPI today, which I know this podcast is actually going to come out tomorrow, is it?
Yeah, it's tomorrow, Wednesday. Yeah,
tomorrow.
Yeah,
so we've got CPI today, so we're going to have to see what happens off the back of that. But I feel like crypto is waiting for a catalyst or something specifically is going to push it up, because I think it's going to go up, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm happy to put myself out there and say I think we're going to head at least towards 39 to 40k now for Bitcoin. What it does after that, I'm not 100% yet. I think it's really difficult to say, but a lot of people are suggesting that when it does reach 40k, obviously it's such a significant point on the Bitcoin chart over the past 2 years. A lot of people are speculating, saying similar story with what Solana's doing right now. It's come to that point where the reason why everyone's so interested in that $63 to $65 range with Solana is because it was Solana's first major pit stop in the previous bull run. Same with Bitcoin with 40k. So when it hits these pivotal points, it either sees a massive reversal or it just slices through it like butter, kind of thing. Because a lot of people are going to be shorting at those, and all those shorts will get liquidated, and they'll just keep pushing up, kind of thing. It's obviously on the cards.
And I think that's the same with XRP. We got stuck below 59 cent for ages. Above that is 66-ish cent.
Yeah.
We're kind of stuck at that point right now, but I genuinely think XRP is ready to blow up as well. I reckon XRP is going to absolutely rip it when we get some sort of news, or even I spoke about on Twitter, someone asked me, what do I think now that ETF came out, we moved up and moved down really quick. And I said, look, that 80% of crypto trading is done by bots, which pushes crypto price into areas of liquidity. A lot of the liquidity above us has been taken, so it could suggest that you might come down to look for lower liquidity. However, if the market in general starts to move up, there's not a lot of pressure above your head, so you can just grind up through the prices pretty easily on spot, or if people start to add open interest again. So it's not like a for or an against that's happened. I personally look at it as if you've flushed away all the pressure that's above you on your head, so it's not actually that difficult to move up in any direction.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it in layman terms, kind of thing. Obviously, if we had that chart, the liquidity chart in front of you, we're both to show you exactly what we're talking about. But I, in terms of XRP, actually do agree with what Will tweeted out this morning in regards to XRP, and that was, even though it's slightly down for the day now, it's going to act similar to when we saw these Bitcoin rumours about the ETF initially come out, the fake approval or whatever, when we saw this massive spike, 8% came down, literally ate the whole candle up, exactly what we've seen in XRP last night, kind of gone sideways, slashed down a bit, everyone's still a bit unsure, and then all of a sudden we've kind of filled that wick and gone back up to that area of liquidity back up there, as people potentially put shorts on now. I don't know, I'll have to check the liquidity maps, but I assume that's happening within XRP right now.
And then one final thing I think before to sum up this week is I've seen some more Tetherford, and I don't know whether it is Tetherford or not, but I just like to report everything that I see, and I talked to you guys about this at the start of the week, is that we've seen a big drawdown in the market cap of USDC from maybe 60 billion to 20 billion, but the market cap of USDT slowly increased, and the market cap of stable coins like net inflows increased this week. So I don't know why that's happened and whether it's just an anomaly of a chart or whether the information's wrong. I don't understand any of that. Like, I mean, I haven't looked into it too deeply to understand it, but it's just something I want to throw out there. So if you guys want to have a look into that and you might not have had your attention drawn to it, it's like USDC's chart has been bleeding out quite heavily, like 66%, and then USDT has just actually moved up a few percent, not in terms of dominance, but in terms of actual market cap. So
yeah, cool. Look into that, but there's not really much more to say this week. Like, obviously, we do a crypto podcast, but there's not a lot to talk about because, like we said, everything seems to have gone flat, both sentiment and news-wise. So that's why we spent most of this time speaking about Ripple Swell.
I think we're in the eye of the storm. That's where I'd say we are right now.
I think we're in the eye of the storm, and something is coming. We're obviously biased towards the upside. We're happy to say that on camera. A lot of people are biased towards the short side, which is fair enough. Either way, I think there's something explosive around the corner. Quote me on that. Imagine it just blows up tomorrow or something. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up for this week, and until next week, we'll catch you guys later.